Hi, I'm Andy Hoffman. I'm the crime and courts reporter for the Hawkeye. Today I was in Mount Pleasant covering a plea involving a Fort Madison man who was originally charged with vehicular homicide through reckless driving and serious injury involving reckless driving. Mr. Heston, who was 19 at the time and is now 20, and two of his friends decided to go hill hopping, or hill jumping as they call it, on a gravel road near Weaver that the locals refer to as Roller Coaster Road. It's a series of hills in which teenagers drive their car at a high rate of speed, go over the top of the hill, go airborne, and then land on the downside of the hill. In this case, he was going at least 25 miles an hour over the 50-mile an hour speed limit, and when Mr. Heston's car touched ground, he lost control of it. It went into a ditch where it struck two cedar trees, shearing them off, and also went through a fence, rolled at least once, and came to rest on its side in a pasture. Mr. Berry was killed and died at the scene. He was a passenger in the front seat. Mr. Harkey, who's 17, was transported to University of Iowa hospitals and clinics with severe injuries, and at this time he still remains paralyzed from the waist down. Mr. Heston also received multiple injuries but has recovered from the accident. The issue today was that Mr. Heston was scheduled to go to trial tomorrow before a jury in North Lee County District Court, but following negotiations between Ross Braden, the county attorney in Lee County, and Curtis Dial, Mr. Heston's retained Keokuk attorney, a plea agreement was reached in which Mr. Heston would plead guilty to involuntary manslaughter, and the charges of vehicular homicide involving reckless driving and serious injury involving reckless driving would be dismissed. As part of the plea agreement, Mr. Heston will not have to serve any time, will be placed on 5 years probation, and he will also be ordered to pay court costs and additionally $150,000 in restitution to the dead man's family and pay all medical bills for the injured friend of his. The future of this case is the Judge Schilling can either accept or reject the plea negotiation at a hearing May 4th. If he accepts the plea negotiation, Mr. Heston will be sentenced at that time. If he rejects the plea negotiation, the plea agreement also calls for Mr. Heston to withdraw his plea and go to trial on the original charges. That will be determined after Judge Schilling reads a pre-sentence investigation report compiled by probation officers with the 8th Judicial District, Department of Corrections and Probation. He remains free on $10,000 bond awaiting trial. At this point in time, the question is, will Judge Schilling accept the plea agreement and place Mr. Heston on probation for 5 years rather than sending him to prison for up to 15 years on the original charges if convicted?